I can see it animating. Good. All right. My attempt at getting Photoshop CC running correctly, so I would have like a normally scaled UI and like using the same version of Photoshop as everybody else, that bottomed out for this morning's experiments. I got like 80% of the way there. That last 20% is gonna be a real bear. So, actually, I'm gonna move over to the proper channel. So I'll see you guys over there if you want to hang out. Okay. Let's see, and then the Twitch over. Yeah, now the Twitch overlay is working correctly. Excellent, excellent, excellent. What was the? It was the Karate Girl for today's study. Low res Karate Girl. All right.
Martial art. Yes.
Yeah. So let's see. Good morning, Kim. Welcome. I forgot how to pronounce your username again already. Oh, and while I'm at it, over the weekend we got some more subs. So I want to shout out La Martine for the Prime sub, Fossil Follies for a tier 1, Kevin McGivern, I see you, bud, and then Jamie Art hit me this morning while I was setting stuff up. I saw the update ping. Thank you so much, you guys. Like, all these subs, it's like not something I expected was going to happen. So it's pretty exciting for me that like people want to throw money at what I'm doing here.
Hey Pete, don't forget to stream on Twitch or on
Discord. Yeah. Okay. Sure. Just getting all of my windows arranged here.
Oh, my bad, buddy.
But you guys won't unless I do the virtual. I can do the virtual cam streaming. Let me do this. I'm gonna. I'm gonna VCam, turn on the VCam, and then I'm gonna hit the turn on camera, and then you guys will be able to enjoy the little Azrael puppet along with everybody else.
Oh my god!
So good.
Yeah, we're so pampered.
And then I gotta set up these windows so that I can see the chat and to see who's speaking and to also see the text chat from Discord. Because there's always somebody in there who's like forcing me to get all of them. Put the whole thing together. Okay. All right. Your actual name's taken everywhere. I don't deal with that problem so much. Clay Chibi, good morning. So yeah, today I am setting up for a stream as usual. Not a stream, a study as usual. So I've got the study up on the board. I've got the latest round of references for the studies over on the Today is the Day channel on Discord. I have a button here that just posts the Discord link. There you go. And if you want to like hang out on voice chat, if you want to meet the community, if you want to join in on our weekly challenge, I posted the weekly challenge after the stream on Friday. This week's challenge is called The Traveler. You just need to make any kind of imaginative image from scratch for the prompt The Traveler and post it on the Discord by noon Eastern Friday, which is when we're going to start the community stream. We're going to be looking at the challenge entries. We're going to be looking at the sketchbook threads. And that's, I think, going to be the main attraction. It's going to be like kind of like a Lawai situation where we're going to be looking at community stuff on Friday. Probably less like portfolio talk than we did in the past and more focused on like what the community's up to. And for today, I mean, we're back in there doing his studies. And then like for tomorrow, I was thinking I might actually do imaginative work on stream, something I've done very, very little of. But I get the sense there's like some latent demand for it. So I'm going to give it a shot. Maybe do some live concept art tomorrow on the stream.
Oh, dude, that would be so exciting.
Yes, +1.
Okay.
Yeah.
That would be tough. That would be tough.
It might be tough. I want to try out that chrome brush that I was playing around with a little bit on Krita. And like Krita also being a free program, that would be really great to be able to like share some content that was done on something that everyone could jump in on for free. They'll just be able to draw exactly like me without any kind of struggles at all, right? Like, even if they've never drawn before, all they need to do is download Krita for free, and they'll be set.
It's like, hey guys, you think you can't draw? Well, the secret is my brushes.
Yeah.
Try this totally weird chrome brush that will definitely work and not get weird bad
Yeah,
results.
you won't get weird, terrible results from it. It's going to be awesome.
I don't know if like being able to doing concept art while like interacting with the chat like at the same time.
Honestly,
Yeah,
you guys
yeah.
hearing the
Yeah.
voice make it really
Fast.
easy on me. Part of the reason I'm able to do this stream at all is because I can just zone in on the drawing and like chit chat instead
And
of
then
having
let
to
us
like.
kind of carry it.
Ah,
Yeah.
Gotcha.
Yeah, because I think it's Pete. Actually, you told me that when you really go hard on concepting, like for a client piece or something like that, you can't no voices, like not even with music.
Yeah, I can't even
right?
listen. I try not to even have music with lyrics on. Like, I can't do podcasts or watch movies second screen or anything.
Mm.
So the idea of like carrying on a conversation while doing it is a stretch. But I'm gonna give it a shot. It's gonna be mostly like, it's gonna be less like a focused doodle where I worry about, less like a focused like illustration piece where I worry like, hey, is this gonna be good enough? Like, what's the core idea behind this? Is this character gonna be something I want to live with for the rest of my professional career? And more like, hey, I'm gonna make cool shapes. I'm gonna follow my nose, and I'm just gonna like have a great time doodling on camera. And we'll see if it comes out well or not. And if it's good, then I'll have a format that could be really great going forwards. And if it turns out terrible, then maybe we'll like see, is there some value in making bad art online?
Yeah, or we just put Jazzmatazz in jail. That's the
we
fallout.
just lock them in
Just lock them up.
Are you guys all familiar with what an oubliette is? Because I think Jazzmatazz is about to find out.
Oh, I know.
I actually
I play a lot of 40K Warhammer games.
Yeah. Hey, Clay Chibi in Twitch chat says, "Great, I'm sculpting while I watch this." And Clay Chibi, are you sculpting digitally, traditionally? I say analog when I talk about traditional.
Between me and you and Doom Spoons, we're gonna like make this a 3D art Discord.
Yeah, take that, Pete Mohrbacher.
Yeah, fuck you, Pete.
Yeah.
Hey, I did agree that if you were going to send me a bust, I was going to try to.
Yeah. Oh, I know. I'm just waiting for him to make another one to send you. I'm not gonna send you a bad bust. I'm gonna send you the best, like, from the guy that makes the best bust in the world. I'm not gonna send you some bullshit.
Just send me a decent one. Like, it doesn't need to be the very best bust in the world. I mean, that just builds up the expectations. Like, I just, that we're doing it for fun.
No, it is for fun. But without getting too long-winded into this, a good bust makes the experience more enjoyable.
Okay.
Yeah.
Amazing bust ahead.
Yeah, amazing bust ahead. There's I was just like on my, now that I'm following more sculptors on Instagram, I was just seeing some reel where somebody was handling some little like 100mm bust, and I was thinking about this, and I'm like, damn, you know what? I could absolutely get in there and fuck with that.
Yeah. Yeah, that's
Kinda
what
what you
I'm
have
just
to.
gonna give you a 1/12 bust. It's gonna be like 3.5 inches torso to top of cranium.
Clay Chibi says, "LOL, I'm sculpting with oil-based clay. That's awesome." Yeah. So
Hell yeah.
Jay and I are. I have never actually played since childhood with traditional clay. But this conversation kind of make me want to do that. But I sculpt in ZBrush is the thing I do.
Yeah, I
It's
would.
really nice.
I would love to spend a little time working in clay. Like, there's this one channel that does like dry, deadpan kind of comedic talking over him doing weird dioramas made in traditional materials.
That's cool.
I forgot what the name of the channel was, but it's so weird. The guy's content is so good. It's like him recreating Steven Seagal getting beat up by a stuntman. And so to do that, he creates like, you know, a photorealistic sculpt of Steven Seagal.
I mean, sometimes you just gotta recreate Steven Seagal in 3D.
Yeah, it's just like, it's him just getting like of Steven Seagal getting roundhouse kicked, but like it's like a really high quality diorama.
Damn. I mean, how is he not like the most popular man on the internet?
I don't know. Like, why is Mr. Beast doing better than him? No one knows the answer to that question. All right, so this is a part of the reason I picked this like reference was because it was a little bit of an odd pose. Like, it's a really cool dramatic angle because the camera's like down on the floor, and then we have this female model that is like not striking this like incredibly feminine silhouette, but it's still like very cool and still like very feminine, but just not like creating the exact silhouette that you would expect. And so like I'm like, okay, well, we have all this challenge with foreshortening, with the kind of expectations, and like getting it to read is like going to be extra hard. Making it not look like she has like backwards knees or like weird fucked up like anatomy is going to require like selling the sort of perspective of this image. So it's like, you know, kind of a challenge in that respect. And so like I'm at first just trying to block in, oh, here's the silhouettes. It goes zigzags in over here or whatever. But I'm very quickly kind of coming to the conclusion that this is not going to work. That like I could probably over time force like the details to get it kind of right. But if I want to sell the foreshortening on like the arm and stuff, I need to actually be like considering it.
You got a really fat ray. I just wanted to say that.
Huh?
Yeah, you're getting rated. Your stream's getting rated.
Oh,
right
no kidding. Oh, oh my God. Thank you so much. Oh my God, my fucking chat's cutting off the name.
It is
Boulay Corp?
RAAHEK. Oh, sorry, Boulay Corp. Yeah.
Thank you so much for the raid. I don't recognize the name, but I'm gonna go check you out after the stream is over. I was just getting started in my studies today. I felt like I was safe. I felt like a French comic artist. Excellent. I thought I was safe, just like being bad at art and chilling and talking through my insecurities here. And now you're hitting me with 179 viewers. Thank you so much. You're putting me absolutely on the spot.
That's why I said like that raid really quietly, and no one heard me. And I was like, I guess we're just gonna move past.
Yeah, I was like, wait, what is he saying? Because like I didn't hear like a blip come up off the OBS. Wait, can't wait for Pete to go full YouTuber and be sitting there studying in a mocap suit. Oh, yeah. Well, it's going to be me looking like Wubby. I'm going to be in like the full-on green suit with my face poking out. That's going to be funny.
Viewership, it's creeping up.
Viewership creeping up? Oh, I've got Sam's linking over to his
Yeah, it's the other part of me, which is on stream.
Oh,
Twitch.
very cool.
Wow, this stuff is great.
I was expecting like action comics. We've got what looks like a slice of life comics going on here. Much more interesting, though I can't read it.
Oh, there's the English. You can click on the.
Oh, there's the English version.
The Union Jack, yeah.
Ah.
They might spell color though, so be careful.
Yeah. All right. Excellent. I'm gonna check this out later. Thanks so much for the raid, dude. Yeah, so today, I mean, as most days, I'm going to be working through my study. We've got our Discord over here, and I upload 4 different studies every single day. Those studies, one of them is like a portrait. This is the portrait piece. There's a landscape, there's a masterwork, and then there's an anime one. And the plan is to, practice our artistic skills together and post them on the community together and, like, figure out how to get a little bit better at art every single day. And it's a challenge, but we're getting there. So for this piece, I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to focus a little bit less on the sort of like, what do they call it, the notan, where you have just the sort of geometric shapes of like light and dark. You can see me already kind of blocking out some of that. I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to pull the opacity back on this, and I'm going to try to focus a little bit more on the three-dimensional structure, and like see if I can construct this figure a little bit in 3D rather than focusing entirely on the sort of two-dimensional like contours of light and shadow, because I think that's what I'm going to need in order to have like a really clear sense on how this is going to fit together. But first, I want to make sure that this kind of loose outline I have is relatively correct, because if I go crazy with it and use it as a skeleton and it's way off, I'm going to be in bad shape. I'm going to be really suffering. So mostly I think I got the overall scale off from the reference just a little bit. But it's not like too bad. I could bring that hand up a bit. Hand a little closer to the rib cage here. Just realized I'm the Angelarian person. That's me. That's why the avatar is like the weird angel guy. I'm that guy. Let's see. So what else? Any other? Oh, that hip rotation. Look at how much higher that hip, that waistline with the hip goes.
Oh, Pete, you're not streaming on Discord.
Oh, I'm on the look on the camera.
Oh.
Yes.
Okay.
Get with the times. No, I'm joking.
Yeah, I want to
Pete,
do the camera so
you're-
it's the same view on both.
T, if you were working on if you were working on like one of the Angelarian pieces, for example, is this with this process that you're going through right now, would this be relevant to what you're working on when you're working out the pose, for example?
No.
Ref?
The problem is like the pose is something that I never do based off of reference. The pose is something that I always start from imagination, because the plan is to like build off of the kind of line of action. Like I need to know where the line of action for the figure is, like more than I need to like have a specific reference for like the anatomy. And like if you start with a reference for an illustration, like you're gonna just end up with like a kind of like weird reskin of that photograph.
Yeah.
Like you need to have like the initial motivation of the figure start from the imagination in order to get that fully dynamic feel.
Jay, this is so related to the conversation you and I were having this morning with sculpting, where a very common workflow, which is the one I've been using, is you start an A or T pose and then you move forward. So you're like building out the anatomy and everything, and then you break symmetry. The danger in that is what Pete's talking about, which is that you end up getting this like stiff thing that's just kind of like forcing anatomy into place, but you haven't worked from the motivation of the line of action and other gestural elements. And so it's just something that I really want to keep in mind, especially as I do 3D, that I don't lose that sense of dynamism.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's an interesting conversation, and one I think about like maybe more than anything else, especially with like what I'm doing, which is like I need something that's 3.5 inches tall to tell the entirety of the story without like burdening it with details. So, yeah.
All right. So let's see. Where do we start? Probably with the torso, right? I think that the actual like line of the sports bra here comes up a little higher.
Do you guys actually think about... I don't know, I've been drawing for like coming up on a decade at this point, and I still have no idea what line of action is. I just don't get it.
It's sort of like...
I don't really either. Sometimes I feel like I have a good grasp of it, and then other times I'm like, there's no way I could draw this line of action in a reasonable way. Where like,
okay, it's not just me. He's
No,
like,
really?
what even is this?
I don't know. It's like
Because I feel
it's
like
that
people pick
invisible
their
line of
action
force
on
that
the most-
it's like you have to imagine where the forces are, right? Like right now we have like this figure's dropping into a low stance, and so we have like there's like this sense that like you have this force coming straight down through the torso, and then the leg is like kicking out this way. It's like these very straight, strong lines here, and it's like you can see the way in which like the center of gravity. She's like sitting straight down in the center of gravity, and it's going all the way from like the top of her head straight down through her butthole, right? Like right from here down to here is like this straight line of action. Like she's sitting straight down into this pose, and that's causing, as she like flexes at the hip, the forces to come down like this into this tripod. And so you can see those actions, and then as we move like through as like that force moves through the legs, you can see the crumpling of the costume coming through here and like running like perpendicular along the side of where that line is going.
Okay, I think I get it now. Thanks, Pete. Took
Wait,
10 years and then you explaining.
Yeah. It's just like
get line of action.
what happens is it affects like the way that like a pose ends up like coming together, but it also like you can often see it in the way that like different elements to form. Like when I'm doing a painting, oftentimes there's like a cloud in the background, and the cloud is like following the same line of action as the character because it's sort of like emanating from the same action. And so it's exaggerating like the same like thing that the character is doing. In this case, like because it's a realistic photograph, we're not seeing that, but like, you know, we get this sense of like where the weight is and where the motion is and like what is like how we've arrived at this point. And so we're not really looking entirely at a still image. We're looking at like a moment in time with a before and an after. And like we can see where there is force in the scene, and like that force is oftentimes like really instructive for, you know, where we put things like any kind of flowing cloth or you know, in this case we have these like ties that are coming around the belt, and you can see again like the weight of the ties going straight down. It follows that same thing where it's like, you know, the ties are coming out from the side of the belt and they're being weighed like straight down because it's like this super heavy pose, feeling the force of gravity. Everything is following along with that. And then all of the places where it's being resisted, we're seeing those forces inside like the clothing. And so it's all part of like kind of a large dynamic system.
May I ask, my understanding was that the line of action was like one primary line. So in this case, you're saying straight down would be the primary line of action.
I think so. Like I
agree. I was just like making sure.
But like, you know, there's a lot of things in this pose that kind of play off of that. Like if we think of like the line of action being straight down, like she has her hand cupped going straight up on one side and then straight down on the other. And so it's like there's a lot that kind of reinforces the directionality of how this like line of action is going.
Sure.
Yeah.
Also, in Twitch chat, Very Saj said it's like a vector in physics, and I'm reminded of Mike Matizzi and the force drawing, where it's like there's a sense of things being pulled down. That's like tension in the legs and the pelvic cage, especially. That seems relevant to the line of action. That's like there's like she's pulling things down.
You know what it is that like confused me? I actually get the concept you're talking about intuitively.
Yeah.
Pete. Like. Yeah, you have to like have like if the hair is blowing, like, you know, everything needs to be blowing in the same direction, right? If there's like an action in like the pose, right? Like anything that can like move in the drawing is gonna like show that a little bit. Yeah, and then you want all the lines to look kind of like flowy and natural and whatever.
But like if we were to like say if she were to like be making if we could change the line of action so that if she was like pushing out with this hand, you know, we could do it like this, and then we could have like the rear leg would probably need to be positioned out further back. So like you could see like that there would be a single line sort of pushing out like from the heel and then coming up into the hand. Like we could really change, if you repose this, like you could really change like where that line of action is happening. And like ideally you want the whole pose, like the whole thrust of the illustration to follow like some of these sort of lines of motion.
Yeah. I think the thing that confused me is like it's called the line of action, not lines
Yes.
converging
me
in the
too.
direction of a single force.
Me
Like,
too. That shit
like,
confused me too.
I can't always represent it in one line. What even is this? It's just the name. It's a little
Um,
confusing.
but
I was struggling really hard because when I heard line of action, I took it very literally as well, and I was like, man, I can't draw one line here that doesn't just end up feeling square in certain areas, and so I was driving myself crazy, and then I came to a similar conclusion, which
Well-
is that there are several lines.
there's several lines, but like when I'm drawing something from imagination, I'm often doing construction lines, and they'll be flowing through the figure, not to draw just like a center line, but to like try to figure out like, okay, if I'm going to be drawing an arm coming out, I'm not going to be meticulously building every single like tube and rectangle. I'm going to start out with like, you know, a sort of flowing line that's going to connect through here, and then I'm going to try to build stuff on top of it.
Sure.
And so to me, like drawing often starts with trying to figure out like, where is this, you know, like where is this dynamic line? And it might be like following sort of inside to outside, where it's like the outside of the shoulder, but it's the inside of the forearm. And, you know, it's generally, it's me trying to find with my hand, how are these things flowing and connecting? But it's because like trying to pick it apart entirely like they're like posable joints on a 3D model doesn't give me a complete sense on like what's dynamic about this scene.
Yeah. Yeah. I still think I struggle with line of action a lot. It's something I'd like to get better at viewing, because sometimes I don't know where my line of action should connect. Like, should I go head to like top of the head to the front leg? Should I go top of the head to the back leg? I mean, where do I take that?
There's
that line?
no firm rule about it. I mean, I think the main thing is that you follow, like, let your hand kind of flow through what you think, like where you think things are headed, and then as you see the marks on the page, use that as inspiration to try to guide whatever you're going to build on top of it. Like,
Okay.
I find that like one of the reasons I like working in pencil so much is because it's really easy to make very clear, definite, but like still very like soft marks. So like brushing my hand loosely over the page and making swirly marks will leave distinct pattern, but it won't be so dark that I can't like go in and draw over the top of it. Like when you look at my drawings, there's a lot of loose construction lines that are kind of flowing randomly all underneath the whole thing, and that's me like loosely trying to arrange like where these sort of lines of action are as I'm posing out the character, rather than like doing this much more rigid thing that I'm like engaging with right here, because you know in this case I'm trying to like find a pose that's already there, but doing from imagination is like a completely different process.
Awesome. Thank you.
And now like Sam is like in the text chat and scrolling really fast. I'm unable to keep up. I hope you guys are having fun
Yes,
in
no.
there.
Ignore most of that. That is TLDR's Clay Chibi and I are nerding out about sculpting.
Okay.
And Jay, you'll appreciate that that they cited Simon Lee, whom we were talking about this morning.
Simon Lee's really great.
Yes.
Simon Lee is who I'm like paying very close attention to the way that they're because they work really with a line of action and telling a story and emotion first without any details. I pay like close attention to that because that's like ideally what I'm doing too when I'm working on like art directing this piece. So yeah, he's incredible. I really like his process and I like his message as well.
But yeah, he's got those super expressive poses that like they feel like super dynamic and natural, even when the character's just kind of standing there. There's all these little subtleties in the way that everything is posed.
Yep.
And like that's ultimately what I want to achieve too, and that's why I'm like when I'm working imaginatively, I'm trying to consider all these kind of intangibles about like where the weight is and how the figure is sort of like flowing through the composition, rather than worrying so much about trying to nail down the specifics of everything off the bat, because that intangible sense of weight and balance is more important to me than getting the anatomy correct.
Yeah,
Holy
100%.
man.
He talks about he said something kind of interesting, and then we can kind of get away from sculpting. But he was talking. Someone asked him about the thickness of his armature wire, and he said he was about to answer it, and then he like didn't. And he talked about instead that the reliance on an armature means that you're not creating a figure that can actually function in its own context. So like you were talking about all these little things that make his piece feel so real and natural. Well, part of it is that he relies on the weight of his own sculpture, like a human would, to like keep itself standing up. And so if it's falling over, he stops what he's doing and he adjusts it in a multitude of very human ways until it stands up on its own.
Very
And that's
cool.
part of that's part of why it looks very natural. Because he's like taking natural principle into it, which is so cool. Yeah, I watch him very closely. He's awesome.
Yeah, I'm like trying to figure out like where should I put the structure, and then I'm like immediately getting lost inside these folds again.
Lost Inside These Folds is a great album title.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so stoked about this concepting demo tomorrow, Pete. Like,
Don't be.
Well, I guess like because it occurs to me that I don't think I've ever seen like even when I was on your Patreon, you do talk about it a little bit, but like, you know, meeting Jazz is like one of the most important things I've done this year because he and I kind of he mostly helped me unilaterally with ideation. It's just ideation is one of these things where I think people because it's kind of one of the more weird, abstract, subjective, like just chaotic parts of art. It's just hard to teach, right? But I do think I don't know if it's teachable, but I think it can be worked on. And I'm at this stage where it was the thing that was like preventing me from starting on my long list of projects. And now I'm going, and it's not because I'm making great stuff. It's just like, I'm like, cool, I just gonna give it a shot. So I just want to learn as much as I can from other people's thinking, and then of course I'll adapt it to what works for me.
Well, I'm gonna try to do it in a much more intuitive way where I'm just doodling, because like trying to be mindfully concepting while talking out loud, I think is totally impossible. That's part of the reason you haven't seen me do it, is because it's not something I think is really super doable to talk through. Yeah. Thinking about creating an idea while you're trying to have an idea.
Yeah, even actually, thank you for that qualification. I'll keep that in mind tomorrow. But even just watching your doodles will help. I think there's a lot that I find, like you in particular, are very symbolic for me, as you know, because you were like one of my first art parents, quote unquote, when I really got into art, and just like seeing you work, like even right now, watching you sketch is like, this is very helpful. Just like there's a sense of, I may not know exactly what everything you're thinking, but I just know that you're working through things right now, because there's such a danger, and I'm not alone in this. There's a danger in art because of the way social media presents art to us, that things just show up like fully formed, unbegotten. It's just like, oh, I just pooped out this amazing piece of art. It's like, actually, there's like a lot of fucking work that goes into it. Oh, pardon the French. I don't know if there's kids on the stream.
Get the fuck out of here, kids. Go do homework or whatever. It's a school day. Are you staying home watching The Price is Right?
Funny enough, I'm actually doing class work right now.
Hilarious.
I'm a kid.
Man, just FYI, like, not to make everything about ethnicity, but I do think I root for Vietnamese artists when I run into them. I was born in the U.S. So I was born in California. Where in Vietnam are you from?
Ho Chi Minh City, but we mostly call it Saigon.
Yeah, no. So as you might guess, because all my family are Vietnamese refugees. They're all from the
Ah,
south. Yeah. So my
cool.
mom is from Nha Trang actually, but
Hey,
all of my
that's my mother too.
Oh,
God dang.
cool. For those who don't know, Nha Trang is this beautiful beach town that was actually mostly untouched by the war. And it's just the water is just clear out for like yards. It's so pretty.
You're gonna see a
Uh,
lot of Europeans, like tourists there, like
yes,
a
and
lot though.
Americans love. There's always like American expats there, and there's a lot of scuba diving. Most of my family on
Yeah.
my dad's side is from District 5 in Saigon. So,
Oh, there's five. Okay, I'm
yeah.
on the Dong Phu.
Oh,
That's
yeah, yeah.
basically, yeah, that's basically the new place they're developing there.
That's awesome. Yeah, my brother lives in D2, not too far from there. So, for the
Ooh,
longest
sweet.
time, we're all born here, and then he went back. But there's a actually the last time I was in Vietnam, I was like really getting into art, and you guys will appreciate this. All my downtime when we were just chilling out in cafes, I copied Andrew Loomis's figure drawing for all it's worth from beginning to end. Did I learn anything from that? Not really. But I was like,
Wait, you mean that
uh,
all those people who are constantly shouting that you need to do Loomis, they were like,
Bridgman, just copy it front to back
Uh,
like Rosetta did. It's like
Guys,
yeah.
I watched Proco and I came to the conclusion that you don't have to try to do art and suck at it and come to grips with that. All you have to do is do tons and tons of anatomy studies, and then when you try to draw a kangaroo from your imagination 10 years later, it will not turn out bad.
Yeah. No, everything you said is absolutely right, Jazz. And I just wish more people knew, like, accepted this, right? Making art because you love it, boo. Like,
Boo.
no. Yeah, we don't do that. We don't do
Making
that.
art because you're obligated to do it well. Yes.
Yeah. Grinding things out until you hate yourself and then you just stop making art.
Yeah. What's the artistic
where
equivalent of
simple is.
doing scales? Let's only ever do that, and
And
someday
never
we'll
play.
and never actually play a song. Yeah.
God, I hope people in chat understand we're being sarcastic. I saw somebody on another server ask something like, he reposted something about like project, like kind of just working on projects. He's like, what do people think? I understand the value of working on projects, but like, you got to still grind out the fundamentals. I'm like, do you? Like, what do you, right? Like, and I don't want to get into this rabbit hole because the whole conversation, but I guess like, it's also like, porque no los dos? Like, you can work on things in the context of the things you want to make, right? Like it's not there's this weird thing of like that whole like me copying Loomis from front to end. Actually, I have a better example. I have another friend who's like got into art about a year or two before me. He's one of the only people I know who worked on Proco's figure drawing and anatomy course from beginning to end. Now, when I say worked on it, I
Whoa.
mean like he like drew things, right? Like who knows what his cognitive framework was. And then when he finally got started on actually working on a tarot deck, there were no figures in the first three cards he worked on. So it was just like, it was all beautiful abstract designs actually. But it was just like, man, I wouldn't say it was a waste of time, but like 4 years of just grinding things out, and it wasn't grounded at all in any actual like creativity. Just wild to me.
That's the exact opposite of what I did. And so like there was a period of time where I felt like, maybe I should stop telling everybody that I'd never studied once throughout my entire artistic come up, like, because it annoys the shit out of people, because there are so many people that like focus on studying first that it feels like I'm trying to like one up them or put them down or whatever. So I'm doing the study thing kind of second as an exploration to see if it's like, to figure out what parts about it are valuable. Because I get the sense that studying is valuable, but boy, does it doesn't make any sense to try to do it outside of a context of building an actual like body of work, right?
Yeah.
Like it has to be done under the context of like creating imaginative artwork, or at least like building a series of artwork like from life. I mean, you paint a sailboat or whatever, but like seriously, like go out and make something, because like doing this thing where you try to study until you feel like you're good enough to start making art is just the wrong idea. And there's not a lot of wrong ideas out there. Like I really bristle whenever people try to come up with gatekeep art and try to explain how there's a right and a wrong way to do things. But like permanently treating yourself like you are like an artist that is like not ready, or that you're going to be an artist in the future, but first you need to be a miserable student. Like I really don't think that there's a ton of value in that mindset.
Yeah.
So I'm willing to go out on a limb and say it's just wrong.
Yeah, it may work for some people. I've seen it work for some people, like who just, maybe just they wanted the structure. But the I think I lost my thread. I guess there's just this like, oh, okay. My generous interpretation of a lot of the way that online art learning is packaged is that it's almost like more experienced artists who are teaching want to save artists from the challenges of
Yeah.
the early, right? Do you know what I'm saying? So they're like, so they retcon, or they go back and they extrapolate, like what would be what if I could do this all over again, what do I wish I knew? But that whole thing is a non-starter, because all the zigging and zagging was also the learning, right?
Yeah.
So you can't distill it down to like the pure, like it's like in weightlifting, like what's the optimal workout? It's like you just gotta figure it out. Like, there's no like that whole thing's a wash. And so, but especially with art, which is so personal, even when you're doing it professionally. And so I question people who think they can save anyone from the inherent zigging and zagging nature of art.
It's not even just a waste of time. I think honestly,
Yes.
it's the pursuit in trying to retcon the cringe out of our own lives.
Yes.
Like a huge amount of it is like, oh, I spent all these years doing really embarrassing stuff on DeviantArt, and I'm going to say that all that was worthless and try to lay out a map that doesn't include spending, your early 20s caring about what people posted on DeviantArt, And and so they're like, so you just need to be serious from the start and like focus on the parts about the art that are like professional, and like here's the skills you actually need to learn. And if you're going to spend, multiple years worrying about whether or not your OCs are popular enough on some lame social platform with a bunch of other teenagers, like, yeah, that's the wrong strategy. It's like, yeah, but like, isn't that what most of us did?
By the way, in Twitch chat, Creative Caliber says cringe deviant art is a canon event.
It is. Yeah. This is it. It's just like
totally
you have to take the good with the bad.
Sonic OCs, man.
I
married one of them.
Married one of them?
Oh
Yeah.
no.
What are we talking about? Witchcraft or politics? Which one?
Witchcraft
It's
or politics?
man.
I mean, art is art the intersection of
Art,
witchcraft and
okay.
politics?
Yes, that's actually the legal definition of art. As a resident lawyer, I can tell you guys. That's it.
It's a resident
But-
lawyer.
Totally.
But actually, speaking of being a lawyer, I do have to jump off right now. You're all
Are you a
beautiful.
lawyer? Fuck.
I was not joking. I actually am an entertainment.
I'm a lawyer in my head.
Okay, yeah, it's you should maybe get that checked out by a doctor. But we love you anyway, and you're very welcome here. Okay,
Bye.
you're all beautiful except for one of you. And you know who you are. And I'll talk to you guys tomorrow.
See ya.
What?
Bye, Sam.
Yeah.
Bye.
Is it me?
No.
No, of course
The
not.
man is actually a lawyer, and not just in his head, but also in his head.
But like.
Wait, for real, he's an actual lawyer?
Sam? Yeah.
Awesome.
Wow.
That's basically
Like,
that's
around the
basically
art-
like my first career that I wanted to opt for when I began my journey in the US.
Maybe he's mad at me now because I said I'm a lawyer in my head. It's
No.
not something-
There's no way.
Yes.
There's no way he's mad at you for saying you're a lawyer in your head.
I like the idea that like if you're in lawyer circles and somebody goes like, well, actually I do art on the side, the lawyers are all going to be like, oh my god, that's so cool, you actually do something creative. And then in the art circles, oh my god, that guy was a real lawyer.
Yeah.
He works at an office. That's so cool.
Like lawyers. It is cool. But it's like creative to lie, you know?
That
It's
is
funny.
exactly what happens.
It's
Like,
funny that like most Vietnamese artists I know, like they always have like a second-hand job. One of my friends that also a dentist, and he's also like does like oil paintings.
Hey, you know what's better
Yeah,
than
like-
better than a first-hand job? Secondhand
Oh,
job.
What?
second-hand job.
Sorry.
That's
Number of
that's his
hands
second-hand.
determines the quality.
I call
It's
my
just
hand
like
jobs manual
medical,
labor.
like engineer, nuclear physicist, and now he's just like one-trick pony. It's like, man, what am I doing
Um,
wrong?
I think it.
Um,
Oh yeah.
By the way, it sounded like I like took a shot at Proco. There's nothing wrong with Proco, and Proco doesn't give
Wait,
the
really?
bad advice that I was making fun of. The reason I brought up Proco is like
Yeah, he's got
I-
that video
I
where
love
like
the
he tried to draw a
he draws
kangaroo
bad
from
kangaroo,
imagination.
and it's just fodder for jokes. I'm so sorry, Proco.
No, I think I've seen him
The
posting about
podcast
it.
is
It's
great.
fine.
Yeah.
You know the podcast, the Draftsman podcast with
I-
Stan,
Yeah.
Stan Pro. Yeah, is it Stan and like Marshall? That's great, man. I listen to it like a lot. It's nice.
I mean, the kangaroo video is like instructive though, because you can literally see Stan Prokopenko in real time have the epiphany that like, wait a minute, I spent 10 years drawing naked dudes, and the kangaroo is turning out bad. Oh no!
You forgot
Was
to
it
study
live,
the kangaroo.
though?
Yeah, it was.
It was live, Jesus.
Yeah.
I'll just
Yeah,
like
no,
thank
it's
God that
definitely
time
funny.
and
So-
just ask for forgiveness. Man, it's fine though. Like, he's still a great artist when it comes to like anatomy, and his course is great, and a lot of people see him as like an anatomy god in a way. It's fun. You don't have to be great at everything, you know.
And there's at
No.
least one guy out there who unironically thinks the kangaroo drawing is the greatest piece of art in the world.
You want to believe that every piece of art has somebody out there waiting to receive it, right? Like that no
Yeah.
matter how cringy or weird or poorly
Yeah.
done it is, that like somewhere there is somebody who when they see it, it's just going to light up. They're going to light up and it's going to be
real.
their favorite thing.
Yeah, it's real.
Right.
Man, we have this artist in Oman. Man, I don't like calling people out, but she's a SCAD graduate and she went to America. She's a
SCAD? For
representative.
Whoa.
Yeah, she went to SCAD and representing. And when she came back to Oman, instead of using all of her knowledge that she got, she started like reverse engineering AI artworks. You know.
Uh-huh.
So
Reverse engineering. Can you explain that?
basically, she doesn't paint or whatever, but like she acts like she painted the thing. So she posts the artwork and then reverse engineer it. Like she sketch on top of it and then say, "Oh, this is like the process. Like it's the opposite thing." And it's crazy, man. She sells well, like, and she never drew. I'm 100% sure. When I see AI, I know it. It's sad, man. It's just, I don't know, man. I think the kangaroo is way better than whatever she's doing. That's my opinion. Because at least that's something someone created, not just like an AI prompt, you know?
Also,
that's
the
it.
kangaroo, I mean, like, in a sense, the kangaroo is a huge success. I mean, how many memes have been made about the kangaroo?
Oh, yeah.
Everyone knows
Yeah.
the kangaroo. Like, I wish I were as successul as that kangaroo.
I'd say that could be like his ploy though, just like doing it just for the popularity in the memes. Like it might have like pre-calculated that. That's like a stun.
I feel like so I've been trying to do this thing. And at first I thought, oh, I failed when I tried to do it during studies, where I'm trying to do kind of like the low poly version of the head,
The planes.
and just doing the planes instead of drawing in like the eyes, nose, and the mouth, like the part of the drawing that I normally do, like when I'm blocking it in with paint, to do all the parts that I normally do second, do them first. And like it's becoming second nature at this point, because I really do think it's a better solution working in this medium to block things out like that, rather than to like start with trying to cut in the high contrast details first. It's like so much easier to place that stuff once it's like in the context of the facial planes, and then like you're so much further along so much faster, because then there's not a whole bunch of like laying in lighting and rendering after that, trying to avoid the smaller details. it's like an obvious thing that like I think everybody who was actually watching a bunch of tutorials and doing studies probably already knew, but it's like new to me. Like it was one of those questions I had in my head of like, I see people are clearly constructing things in a different order than me, but I don't understand in what order and why they're doing it. And like it's starting to become sensible to me.
Yeah, it's like that video. I get it. I forgot the actor.
Oh yeah.
Oh,
Actually,
was it Chris Evans? He's like, I understood that one.
Not Chris Evans. Fuck. It's the guy with the glasses. Forgot his name.
Guy with the glasses. Okay, moving on.
Yeah, moving on.
when I was doing those like timed like character designs every day,
Mm-hmm.
when they started to get better, it wasn't actually mostly just like me getting better at drawing. There was like a little bit of that, but the main thing that like clicked where I saw like big improvements was just like figuring out like an order of operations that was like more efficient.
Yep.
Yeah. It's just-
I try to talk to people all the time about process, like developing your own process and like how to look at some other artists' work and like think about it in terms of process rather than in terms of like the creative decisions that they're making. And it's like it's a really tough concept to get across because I don't think that people understand the power of it unless they've done what you've done, which is to like spend a bunch of time making a shitload of art and then see the way in which like process has the ability to transform it.
Yeah. Actually, like Anthony Jones talks about this quite a bit too, because that guy's like mega fast at painting, right?
Mm-hmm.
And like people ask him how to like go fast a lot, and he always makes this like analogy about like Super Meat Boy, which is like a platformer game where like it's really hard, but it like gets you back into the game quickly, like every time you die, so you can sort of like try over and over again, and you're like rapidly iterating on like different techniques to try to like get through a Super Meat Boy level or whatever, and you like learn pretty fast by like doing that. So he was trying to sort of like apply that to art, and having like tried his method out of just like timing yourself and just like trying over and over again and like trying different things when like it doesn't work the first time or whatever. Yeah, like there's something to be said for just like trying to do something badly like 1,000 times in like rapid succession.
Well, the other part of it is you need to have and I think the thing that we were talking last night about the people who spend 20 years making art and they don't seem to get any better.
Yeah.
Like if I had a theory as to how that's possible, I would say that it has to be some sort of problem with like a feedback loop. Like in a platformer like Super Meat Boy, you get a really clear definition on whether or not you've succeeded because like, your little guy blows up and turns into like a meat splat. Like
Yeah.
if you like the thing about art is that it's not always clear whether or not what you're doing has succeeded because the definition of success and failure in art can be rather subjective. So if you don't have like a clear definition on like what you're trying to accomplish and you're not like paying attention to like what you're actually doing, like it's very difficult to connect what you're doing to the outcomes. Like you need to have like a full feedback loop where it's like that you're performing an action, then you know whether or not you're getting a like punishment or reward signal from that action, and then you get to try again and like iterate. Like that process of going through like failure and success and getting reward and punishment signals from your brain and from like the thing that you're working with, that's like that allows you to learn. But if you don't end up closing that loop, you might as well just be like making colored confetti because like the like you unless you like had like part of the reason I like the studies is because like anybody who's tried doing these for the first time when they like are have no art experience, they're just going to be getting nonstop punishment signals from their brain where they're like their brain's like, nope, you drew it wrong, nope, you drew it wrong, and like it becomes kind of tedious and frustrating when you've never done it before, because you're just basically getting killed over and over again on the first stage of art, and like your brain won't stop telling you about it. So it's like it's easier to go into like treat art where it doesn't have like a right and a wrong way to do it, because then you like you don't get those like uncomfortable punishment signals. But like, you know, what we're talking about is trying to like very specifically grow and get better at like some subset of skills inside art. And to do that, like you have to define what success looks like so that you can actually start to get like either a punishment or a reward based on whether or not you're doing a good job or a bad job. There's a ton of reflected light in this scene. So like half of this figure's face is being lit like from underneath, and I'm trying to like catch where those are coming from. But yeah, so like with studies, it's great because you get a nice clean signal. And like at first I remember like feeling like I was getting only punishments over and over again. Like I was getting whacked on the nose with the newspaper every time I tried to do a study. And then it started to like actually work. And I started to get these like, you know, reward signals, this like dopamine rush from making these. And it's made me want to keep coming back to them. But like even if you're working on like something imaginative, like there needs to be some definition about whether or not like you're doing a good job. Because like if you don't have like a definition, then it's always going to like, you don't have the tools necessary to be able to train yourself. You know, they're like when you're training an animal, I was watching a YouTube video of a guy who had a trained crocodile.
Huh.
And he was just like swimming in a pool with like an adult crocodile. And he's like, oh, yeah, no, he's not tame. No, he's not full. Like, if he were to believe that I was incapacitated and I would never give him treats again, he would just eat me because I'm made of meat. But he knows, because he's, like, been trained, that, like, I am going to give him treats when he does the things that I like. And so he's rational, and he's going to, like, not eat anyone who comes into the pool. And like preserve his like biting things for when he's going to get something he knows he wants, rather than just like doing it randomly. And like the way that they get like even like a really wild animal like an alligator to like be trained is by, you know, giving them punishment and reward signals based off of different behavior. Like basically anyone is like going to be trained, whether it's a person or an animal or whatever. There just needs to be a really clear, like, you're doing the right thing, you're doing the wrong thing. And then like over time those signals accumulate. That's also how like all AI training is done. Like they created a method for giving a reward. There's just like a variable inside the system that is like, you know, punishment versus reward, and say like if the AI succeeds in its task, then it gets like 1 increment plus for reward. And it's like really as simple as just defining a variable and making it increment up. But like for people, like we have this wiring in our brains, like where we get these like signals that tell us like you're doing it right, you're doing it wrong. And so if we're going to be going into a learning environment, we need to understand like the ways in which we receive those signals and like what's causing us to feel good and bad about what we make. And like what signals should we be respecting? What signals are we receiving? Like it's all going to matter to like whether or not we're improving. It really doesn't matter like, you know, our sense of ourselves. It really matters more about like the environment that we're building for ourselves.
Yeah, it makes you wonder how people are able to like not improve.
It's
like
got to be a
Dunning-Kruger
dysfunction
effect
on
thing?
like whether or not they realize that they're succeeding or failing.
Yeah, it's just like, yeah, what are you talking about? Everything I do is like perfect.
Well, like if you
Oh,
were
we're
to
doing, bro.
close yourself down so that you would work, but you would never consider whether or not the drawing was like, you know, solid in terms of anatomy or like expressive in the way you wanted to. Like, you need to. Some people really fetishize this feeling of like them beating themselves up, but like that's also a bad idea. You need to be open to feeling like, hey, I did a good job. But you also need to be open to the feeling of, I didn't do that correctly and I need to do it differently in the future. Like every failure state is going to result in your brain wanting to do things some amount differently next time. And it's going to keep seeking like a reward state by experimenting by little increments, right? By introducing like slight variations on the previous solution. And so if you can like keep that process turning and keep like doing like minor changes to your system, like you were talking about doing like a ton of like you were doing daily designs. So you're getting daily feedback from your brain whether or not the choices for your process were like working or not. And you had like empirical data in the form of, hey, is this happening like within the time that I've set on the timer?
Yeah. And like saving them in like chronological order was a good idea too, because I can literally every time I go to like save my new painting or whatever, I'm seeing the thumbnails of like the last 8 or whatever, and I'm remembering like, oh, that one didn't get done because like I spent too long trying to do like refined line art or whatever, and there's just like not enough time for that. Like, yeah, there's a lot of feedback involved in that process.
It's clear. Yeah, it's clear to you. Like, hey, this worked, this didn't, and with that clarity, you have the capacity to make choices about your future. But like a certain amount of it happens subconsciously. Like you're going to be, you're going to go back in a drawing. You're not going to always think like, okay, well, I need to make sure that when I get to this point, I'm making the collarbone higher. There's a part of you that's subconsciously going to say like, well, last time I drew this, I drew the collarbone too low, and then my brain said, you're a fucking idiot. And like, there's a part of you that is like reacting to those signals all the time. And it's not a conscious like verbal part of your brain. You're not going to be noticing that stuff explicitly, but you will experience it implicitly.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I don't know. I used to
Suburb Dragonus is asking, do you think the problem is because people aren't open to outside good critiques these days? What do you think, Jez?
I feel like people are open to good critiques. I've never encountered anybody who's just like, no, my art's perfect. How dare you? Like, the only time I've ever seen people like blow up at critiques or whatever is when like the person is kind of like offering unsolicited advice and like won't back off when like, is clearly upsetting the person. Like it's usually like critical like social skills failures.
Yeah.
That, like result in like one person screaming at another person over like an art critique or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I typically don't like getting critiques and I don't seek them out. So it's like, I don't really feel like I would expect differently from other people. Like, I don't think that people should need to go and seek out critiques necessarily. I've watched a lot of critiques over the years, and in a lot of cases, I feel like they're either counterproductive or worthless, because a lot of critiques like revolve around the critiquer instilling their own vision onto the artwork.
Yeah.
Saying, well, what you really should have done is like, you see how you have this at a low angle? This would be way more effective at a high angle. Like, oh, you have this character that's like really gross and ugly. Like, you should make them look beautiful. It's like, well, what if your entire brand that you're trying to build is to draw gross, ugly characters? Like, having somebody go and just, yassify all of your figures is like not useful critique. Like, it's very difficult to do effective critique because you have to understand what the intent of the original artist is. And I see that very, very rarely in critiques. So I don't really think that I never thought it was as valuable as like the lived experience of just making stuff. And like on the subject of like, hey, if the real value is in having this clear sense of like feedback of like positive and negative feedback signals in the brain, you don't need critique to necessarily get that. I think it's possible to get knowledge from other artists from like, if you can talk to somebody, they can say, hey, I see you're missing this one thing in particular, or you're avoiding this thing. Like they can bring it to the front of mind, and that can be really, really valuable. Like if you get to know people in a community, or like you have friends that do art and they like talk to you about it, or if you have a mentor that like knows you well and can speak to you about your art, like that can be valuable. But like most of the time when I see critiques happening, it's between strangers, and I don't think that that's valuable in most cases.
Oh, also, yeah, I kind of agree that I think, I don't know. I'm not sure whether critiques are overrated because I don't have anything compared to, but like my entire like development, I've been hearing the advice, you need to get critiques. But like I got to where I am without ever getting critiqued a single time until recently, since like joining this Discord basically, and like I was able to get better without any critiques. So like it's clearly not a necessary component of being able to draw like me, at least.
Yeah.
And like I've clearly improved over the years, so like I don't know, I think it is a bit overrated. That said, I don't know, I feel like part of the reason I've been getting better at painting faster lately is just like talking to a bunch of people in this Discord who are really good at painting.
Getting to know people who are like just up to something, like being a part of a community, I think is more important than like seeking out a particular type of interaction. Like it really is just like a more of a lifestyle social thing, I think, than it is a like explicit practice. Like, it's not about like going through the motion of like saying hi to people in a Discord. It really is a matter of like making art around people that value the same things as you, or like see you for who you feel like you're seen for who you are, and like the work exists in a social context. I think that matters.
Yeah. Oh man, I've actually been like really motivated to do art since you made that like sketchbook thing. I got addicted to Baldur's
I'm
Gate
trying to
3.
create the circumstances that lead to what I'm talking about.
And I feel like before I would have been like, okay, time to just disappear and play Baldur's Gate 3 for 2 weeks straight and not do any art. But because there's like a sketchbook thread or whatever, and I haven't posted it in a couple days, it's like, nope, I gotta make something so it can go in the sketchbook thread.
Yeah, and it's like, is everybody waiting for you to post in the sketchbook thread? Like, probably not, but like, are there going to be people who are going to be happy when they see there's a new post in your sketchbook thread? Like, absolutely, yes.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And the fact that you know that that's true is going to be motivating to you getting in there and like working on it.
Yeah, definitely. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like more helpful than the critiques has actually just been like listening to Pete talk about painting, and like, yeah, I don't know. I'm just like realizing a bunch of ways in which like my thought process is pretty different from people who are actually good at painting. And it's making me be like, oh, okay, I do need to think about light sources. I can't just like.
Well, yeah,
find
I'm
a
saying the same
painting.
thing. Like, I'm out here going like, oh my God, yeah, you have to like block in the planes of the face first. Never done it before.
Yeah. Oh, there's one other thing I wanted to say about the whole like feedback loop, reward, and punishment signals thing.
Mm-hmm.
There's something I noticed pretty early on where every time I would feel the worst about a drawing, like I would be stuck on like a study even or something, right? And like nothing I did would work. I felt like the worst artist in the world. It made me like quit art for like a week. It was so upsetting and frustrating. Every time I've had an experience like that, I was like right on the verge of leveling up.
Uh-huh.
So it's like, and because that's just like happened to me so many times, I kind of it makes it easier to like keep going and not give up when like stuff like that happens.
Yeah. Yeah, you start to grow used to like the discomforts of it. I think we've equated art to like exercise plenty of times, where it's like, when you're comfortable in your body, you know the difference between like, you know, the pain of twisting your shoulder versus the pain of like lifting a heavy weight like correctly. Like they're different. They're different types of physical discomfort. And like we need to also learn like the different types of mental discomfort. Like, hey, I'm overworked, or hey, I'm experiencing trauma in some way, versus like I'm receiving like negative reward signals because I'm struggling with something that I'm about to have a breakthrough on. And like they're different from each other. And like so like I've always worried that people are fetishizing this sensation of overwork as like a valuable thing. Because I don't really think that people get better through overworking themselves. I think like you have to learn the difference between what it feels like to be burned out and like beat up, and like what it feels like to just not be fully satisfied with the work you're creating yet. Like that dissatisfaction that leads to that growth is such a useful pain. And it's subtly different. It's a mental experience. And so that we can't even like physicalize it. We can't like talk about it in a way that is like, you know, related to a sensation in the body. We have to like talk about it in these very abstract terms in order to even like describe that we're having a shared experience. So it's difficult. And I think that's one of the things that makes people screw it up so badly so often.
Yeah. It's weird, man.
Because like you're never going to get better if you never experience discomfort, but you're also never going to improve by like just turning into a study machine and like making yourself utterly miserable. You're just going to like work really hard for a few days and then burn out. Or if some people will survive for a few weeks or a few months, but it'll just result in like, you know, myopic behavior followed by burnout.
Yeah. It's also, I don't know. It's very hard to give like advice about art because there's no like controlled art improvement studies or whatever to like draw on for objective information. But man, I did a whole lot of studying because I was like too afraid to start creative projects for like the first half of my like development as an artist. And then I started actually trying to do stuff, but like do it bad. And like the rate of improvement in like the second half is like way, 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 way faster than like the first half, even though, you know, like supposedly there's supposed to be like diminishing returns on your growth. But like I've kind of felt the opposite.
You saying there should be diminishing returns in growth from just like constant repetition of like just making stuff for yourself, just drawing whatever, like
no, I mean like in like when you like first start, that's when like the growth should be the highest or whatever, because you know you're starting from nothing, right? Like,
right.
Like everything is new, like there's so many like easy everything like free wins you can get.
It's all so beautiful.
Yeah. And then as you like do it more and get better, right? Like you start to have to like think more about like, okay, I've like improved at all the easy stuff to like improve at, but now like, you know, I have to like really think about it more. It gets more advanced. Like, you know, like the last 10% or whatever is always like the hardest in terms of like achieving a skill level. But I feel like I've improved more in like the last couple years than I did in like my first couple years, and it's partly from just spending more hours at it probably, but I think the other thing is like there's just a better feedback loop of like trying to like actually you know, like fulfill my creative goals or whatever, instead of just being like a study machine and not having that feedback loop of like, oh, well, I'm like not as good at drawing hair as I think I am or whatever.
Let's try to see if we can cram it into this metaphor I've been making. Like you know, you're saying, okay, well, I've experienced a lot of growth over this period of time where like, you know, I was just making a lot of stuff that I cared about. Like, I think that when it comes to like studies, one of the issues with it is like, if you don't care that much, it's really, you're not likely to get a lot of signals about like, hey, you're doing this right, you're doing this wrong. 'Cause like your brain is just like, who fucking cares? Like, if there's no investment, then why would you ever get like a really strong signal that you're doing it incorrectly? Like, I think for you to get a really strong signal that you're like on the right track or that you're on the wrong track, you need to have some amount of emotional buy-in.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, it's also just like your brain's adapting to whatever, right? It's like trying to do, right? If you're just like sitting around drawing naked people all day when you want to be drawing like knights and wizards, right? And you want to be drawing like your own take on like knights and wizards, not just copying someone's knight or wizard or whatever.
Yeah.
Like there's probably some transfer from like drawing naked dudes over and over again, but like, yeah, your brain's just adapting to drawing like really good naked dudes from reference. You want it to be adapting to making up knights and wizards. If that's your thing. I mean, if naked dudes from reference are your thing, more power to you.
Yeah, go for it. But you know, I think that like if somebody really loved like academic art and like they were to go through the Loomis book and be copying all of the images in there as a matter of study, I think that they would probably get a lot out of it because they're just like, I fucking love going here and finding all these little bits of nuance that are constantly catching my eye. And like they would be, anytime they would, you know, do it a little right or do it a little wrong, they'd get these little squirts of like juice trying to push them in one way or another. But like if you are just trying to do it for the sake of getting it done, like you're not going to have the level of investment necessary to get that kind of controlled feedback, I don't think.
Yeah.
Summer Dragoness is saying, I have to say that your streams have been absolutely motivating to me, as is your Discord server, both from yourself and members. I haven't been this happy or active in another group or community. I feel like I'm relearning a lot that I've either forgotten or I've been too shy in terms of rotation, so thanks. Oh, thank you for joining. I'm glad it's working out. You know, like we want to create a really welcoming space where people are invested in making art in a way that makes them happy. Like part of that is because, hey, don't we just want a little bit of pleasure in our lives? Like it'd be nice to just have nice things. But also, like, I think that in terms of accomplishing our artistic goals, like getting better at drawing anatomy or like getting better at lighting or, you know, pushing our careers forwards, whatever it is that we're set to want to do, like we get there by focusing on the parts about art that like, you know, give us satisfaction. And so that's the other reason why I want to like promote that kind of mindset, because I think it's going to lead people to where they want to get to, because we're all trying to get to different stuff like creatively. Like I know you want to learn some about painting, Jazz, but like you're not trying to like paint like me exactly. Like you're not trying to just be a copy of me.
Yeah.
And the fact, I think like everyone in this server has got their own slightly different artistic goals about the kind of artist that they want to be. And I think that's necessary for it to be a healthy space.
Yeah. One of the things that like I really like about this, I mean, first I know that feel, bro. Whoever said that thing in the chat a second ago. I was actually like mega depressed before I like found this art Discord and like wasn't drawing because I was like too depressed. But found this and I've been like more productive than I've been in like months. It's been great.
I'm just inducing a mass manic state in everybody else. I'm taking my own mania that I get when I start a new project and I'm just foisting it all on you guys. It's just like, you don't realize it, but you're going to crash super hard. Nothing about this is valuable. It's all mania.
I can feel it happening already. Actually, like my sleep schedule was like screwed up for like a few weeks, better part of a month actually. And I was like, okay, all right, I need to fix my sleep schedule and then like get organized or whatever. And I've been really organized the past couple weeks, and it's starting to fall apart. I've been like not waking up in the morning when I'm supposed to, and like getting off to a slow start, and it's like crap. It's happening again.
All right.
I'm getting gradually less organized.
Yeah. So, okay, here's my advice on this, because I struggle with this constantly. I go through these periods of like depression and mania back and forth. And the trick, I mean, we talked about this once in the past, and I was telling you, like, the trick is not to try to like juice the most you can out of your like up time, but to try to go towards the middle. Like one of the things that's really, really helped for me to having like long-term periods of productivity is to like respect downtime a lot better. Like be more mindful about like building in stuff on the weekends that like allows you to really relax your shoulders, like really make sure that you are taking time off, that you're doing the kinds of things that are emotionally recharging for you, away from the internet, away from screens. Or, if you want to indulge in some amount of like Baldur's Gate time, like trying to be the hyper productive, charming version of yourself all the time, every single day is going to go fine for like a bit, maybe a couple weeks, maybe a month. And then it's going to like, it's just going to like force you down harder into like the depressed state that comes afterwards. Like trying to like back off a little bit from the most like intense urges when everything's like the energy level's up, and trying to like move towards the middle and even out, like has the ability to really lessen the impact of those depressive episodes. And then I've also found that like when I'm going into a period where I'm like losing a lot of energy and I don't have the ability to focus and I know I'm depressed, I give myself less work. Like I keep my organization mostly running, but I make sure that there's just way fewer tasks on my plate, and I promise less things to people, and I just expect less of myself. I just lower the difficulty level of my life as low as it'll go, so that I don't end up just on top of feeling like, I'm already going to be feeling like shit, like also being a disappointment. Like just being able to like count days where I finish my task list as a success, like really, really help. So like making sure that they're set to like the easiest possible difficulty during that time makes things like way, way easier. And then like I'm able to turn, like I was going through a period like that even while I was getting this whole server set up. And, I had good people around me helping me out with stuff, just trying to take care of myself, trying to make sure I get maximum amount of time off. And like I managed to sort of pull out of it and go back into like a good space where I was getting a lot done, without too much of a down period in between. It's like, it's totally manageable if you like can be aware of it as it's happening.
Yeah, I think that's probably smart advice. My plan actually is instead of doing what I normally do, which is like just get sucked into some like new video game that came out for like 2 weeks to sometimes over a month, and like barely drawing in that time. Just being like, okay, all right, first thing in the morning, you don't have to like work all day every day, but like make sure you get like 3 hours in on like a personal project that you want to do, and then like get a study in, and then you're like free to go do whatever.
Yeah, I mean that was what I was doing, and that was like I was talking, and people were like, "Oh, what are you up to?" And I'm like, "I'm fucking around with my conveyor belts." Like, I during that period of time where I was getting this server set up, and we were like building the foundation of the business, and I was like starting my streaming career, I was like really depressed, and I clocked 110 hours in Dyson Sphere program. Like over the course of like a couple of weeks, I managed to put 110 hours into that game, but I also still managed to like show up and do a daily study and like clear all my essential emails and make sure that I fulfilled obligations to people. And then I clocked the fuck out, and I like obsessively played a video game that, was just locking me in my office by myself. And then when I felt like I was ready, it was like, that's when I bought gym membership, started to work through my backlog. And like, now I've got my, as of this morning, I got all my task and email backlogs totally cleared. And so I'm in a good spot right now to like wrap up some stuff, get some things finished. And and then I don't have like a massive fucking backlog next time like things go bad again. I'm not going to be like overwhelmed by a bunch of like old tasks that are like sitting in my email for like a month or like 3 months or whatever.
Okay, awesome.
I mean, it's you can totally like go into a depressed state and like play shitload of like Baldur's Gate and still manage to be like good at art and like fulfill your obligations to yourself and other people. It's all doable.
Yeah, I actually I find that's when I don't actually go through these like up and down like manic depressive episodes. The depressive episode I had I guess about a month ago at this point was sort of a unique thing that like doesn't happen to me regularly, but I do get like
Well, that's
demotivated
nice.
about art and like get or not even demotivated. I just get distracted by things, right? Like it's just hard to like make yourself work all day every day.
You don't have to work all day every day. I mean, like that's the whole point. It's like you shouldn't be.
Yeah. And I just, you know, like I get like I'll like get sucked into like Elden Ring when like that came out or whatever.
Yeah, I
like
spent about 100 hours on 2 different playthroughs on that. So I think I did about 200 hours on Elden Ring
nice.
when that came out.
Yeah. And it's not so much like I'm depressed, so I'm just going to like drown my sorrows in like Elden Ring or whatever. It's usually like, oh man, I've been working really hard and it's like great, but like man, it's hard and I wish I could like play Elden Ring or whatever. So I start playing Elden Ring and what happens to me is like, oh, this is so nice not having to like stress over art or anything. Just one more day, just one more day. All right. Just play Elden Ring all day. Oh man, this game's so awesome and it's so nice to just be totally relaxed and have no obligations. Oh man, I haven't checked my emails in 2 days. That thought kind of stresses me out. Just think about Elden Ring.
Yeah.
Right? And the next thing I know, it's like, oh, I played Elden Ring for like 3 weeks and got nothing done in that time. Yeah, I don't know. I don't want to like get into it, but yeah, I had kind of like a unique thing happen a couple months ago that probably won't be a thing in the future.
Well, yeah, you don't need to get into it, but yeah, I mean, I go through my own mental health stuff. It's like I try to be open about it because I've heard a lot of people tell me that me being open about it is like helpful to them to like acknowledge when it's happening to them and like seek treatment when they need it. So like, you know, I just want to make sure that I'm always talking about my own stuff. I also think it's kind of funny because I think that people will tell me like, oh, well, yeah, you know, you're hyper productive, like you're super productive. Like, how do you do time management? And I'm like, I don't know who you're talking about. Like, I'm the guy who's put, you know, like you could say I'm really productive or I'm like up to a ton of stuff, but I also just put like 110 hours into like this game about conveyor belts for no reason. You know, like I'm the same guy who'd put like, you know, 250 hours into Elden Ring in the middle of trying to like take care of some really important project. Like the idea that I'm like a super productive person, it feels 100% wrong to me.
Yeah.
Just that you do what floats your boats.
I mean, you probably are like decently productive. It's just it feels like, right, like I don't know, we're like aware of everything that happens in like our whole day or whatever, right? And it feels kind of like a long time or whatever, like a whole month. But like, you know, because you're not paying as much attention to other people, you just see them like making stuff, and it's like, whoa, they must be so productive or whatever. But you're just not like fully aware of like what their whole life is or whatever. I feel like you're probably well above average productivity, Pete.
These days, I feel like I'm pretty good because like I'm able to surf through this stuff. Like as I said, just surf through like the ups and downs way better than I used to. And so like, I mean, there was a period like in the depths of when I was like failing at Kickstarter, like there was times where it was like, you know, I realized that I was spending about 9 hours a month painting, and that was the main thing I was doing during the day. And it was like the rest of it was like Reddit.
Oh damn.
It was just like Reddit and like Warframe for like 2 months maybe. And during that time I probably did about a total of 20 hours of painting over a 2-month span. And then people would be like, wow, you're so productive. And I'm like, what the fuck are you talking about? Like, I am deeply dysfunctional and I need a solution because I'm suffering.
Okay. You know, it is actually, there definitely are advantages to being like open about this kind of thing, like you were saying, both for you and for other people. For one, I think a lot of people can probably relate to you more, knowing that you're like human or whatever. It's like, oh, that's cool.
Despite
But
the
the other
avatar.
thing too, yeah, is right, like I was feeling really guilty about like not getting anything done for a couple days when I was supposed to be like drawing my Twitter or whatever.
Yeah.
Or growing my Twitter, and I was talking to Ash, and she mentioned like, you know, like she takes long breaks away from drawing all the time, and it's not 'cause, you know, she had to do something else productive or whatever. Like a lot of it is just living life, and like
Yeah.
Ash is already just like a phenomenal like world class painter or whatever. So it's like, oh, okay, you don't need to draw all day every day to like be really good. You just, you know, be patient, keep putting in the time you can. You'll get there. It's like a very comforting thing to sort of be aware of.
Yes. And like, you know, I think somebody was mentioning it earlier about how they were you know, it kind of stuck in this like, you know, super broy, super like obnoxious mindset of like needing to constantly study 18 hours a day. And it's like, I think that the depressive spending, you know, all day, every day on Reddit and Warframe is like this is the same. It's like the reverse side of the coin from like feeling like you need to be working all the time. I think that they're both like part of the same dysfunction, which is why I'm like kind of against this like burnout study culture, is because to me it reminds me of like the dysfunction I've had with like procrastination and like, you know, all my executive dysfunction feels like this. It's coming from the same place as like people who want to study for 18 hours a day and always feel like they're never good enough. Like, I think it all has to do with like a dysfunction about like our emotional regulation and like our expectations for ourselves. It's like I don't think it's a mental fight. I think it's an emotional fight.
Yeah.
Like imposter syndrome?
Yeah, maybe. But more along the lines of like, you know, we don't struggle with things that we don't care about. Like we struggle when there's things that we want to like turn out well. You know, we care about the outcome of them.
Yeah, like honestly, one of the thoughts that's like made me so productive and like made me keep going, like these past couple weeks, is actually maybe not the healthiest. It's this ever-present like stressful sort of like anxiety about like, oh no, like the internet is changing so much, like all these opportunities that exist today might not exist tomorrow. I need to be like more productive right now. I can like relax later. It's like making me more productive, but it's like also making
That's a
me
recipe for
anxious.
burnout. That's burnout.
Yeah.
That's burnout in progress for sure.
Yeah. And it's also probably like not all true.
No, it's not
probably
true.
not as much of a yeah.
Like you have a long list of things that you need to get done to like get to where you want to go. I mean, I was listing off last night. I was like, oh, you just need to do a couple of things. I listed them out, and it was like a dozen things, and I'm like, oh wait, actually, that's kind of you've got a lot ahead of you.
I've been telling people like about our like conversations and stuff, and it's like, man, I'm really motivated to like do all this stuff. The problem is though, Pete keeps giving me things to do, and like I actually made a list of the things and was trying to like allocate time to them every day, and I realized there's not like figuratively not enough hours in the day. There's literally not enough hours in the day.
Yeah.
I like worked it out.
So like this is a problem I've dealt with in the past of like there's literally not enough hours in the day. Like I'm an ambitious person who's trying to always take on like multiple things at the same time. But you know, you're seeing me here. I'm studying. Like I'm not working on. I was saying before the chat that I was like, oh, I know what my next Kickstarter is going to be, and it turns out I need to start working on it immediately. Well, I'm not doing that right now. Like you only ever get to do one thing at a time. You have this like deck of cards, and you can only ever play off the top of the deck. Like you only ever get to do the task that's at the top of the list. Everything else down the list is bullshit. Like you only ever have one thing you're working on at any given moment. And so prioritizing like what order you do things in, and like keeping track of like where things are in that deck, that really, really matters to whether or not you accomplish long-term goals.
Okay.
And so it's like, it's not a matter of like figuring out a way of getting more productivity out of the day. It's a matter of making sure that like the things that need to happen eventually do happen. So if you're trying to get into conventions, like you say, okay, well, there's like online sales like Kickstarter and stuff. There's like, you need to be building your portfolio up. You need to be setting up like crowdfunding like Patreon. You need to be thinking about your first Kickstarter. It's like, but then you also need to be like setting up for conventions. Okay, well, where does it start? What's the top priority? And when are the other things going to happen? Like that prioritization like needs to occur at some point in order for any of those things to get done.
Oh yeah, the priorities thing is super true. I noticed that when I started getting into fitness, right? Like if I make fitness the top priority, right? Like I get all that stuff done first thing in the morning. I make consistent progress towards my goals. If I put it towards the end of my to-do list, it's not like it doesn't get done, right? Like I will devote some of my time and resources to it or whatever, but like it's not consistent enough to like actually make progress. Like whenever I'm like, okay, I need to lose like 10 pounds in like a couple months or whatever, like the only way I can make that work is if like that is top of my to-do list for a little while. Yeah, I don't know if this is making sense,
So,
but like
no,
the order in which you do things is very important.
It is really, really important. So it's like, you have like we've talked about. There's all these things that you need to do, right? All right.
Yeah.
So like, let's say, like, which one of them do you think is like the top priority to do?
Well,
Play Baldur's
honestly,
Gate.
the one I've been prioritizing the most is growing on Twitter, like trying to have something to post on Twitter every day. There's a couple of reasons for that. One, lowers barrier to entry, so like anxiety isn't going to get in my way as much. It will grow a portfolio and a body of work that I can then use for like other things in the future, and it'll make other things sort of like easier to like get started with too, because I'll have an audience that I can like promote my stuff to or whatever, and like Twitter will serve them like, oh, I'm starting a Kickstarter or whatever. I also want to do like a non-ambitious project on Kickstarter too, just because like again, lowest barrier to entry, and I can meet the Twitter goal in the process of that, right? Like if I'm designing a bunch of pins, right, those designs can go up on my Twitter as well as like go into some sort of Kickstarter project or whatever. So those are the two things I kind of wanted to like get out of the way first.
So there's
Post on Twitter
my
every day,
first reaction to that list is that like one of those things is measurable in terms of defining whether or not it's done, and the other one it's not.
Yeah, and one of them, the one that's measurable, is getting done, and the one that's not measurable has like not had very much progress made on it. All I did was like gather some reference and do some.
No.
sketches.
I think you're seeing the opposite of what I'm seeing. One of them,
Okay.
not saying progress, I'm saying done. Like, the Kickstarter, you can say I launched a Kickstarter. With Twitter, you're like, you're never going to be able to say I got enough Twitter. Like you could say grow the Twitter, but you didn't say like grow the Twitter to like 1,000.
Okay.
Like if you were to say like I'm going to grow my Twitter to 1,000 followers, and then I'm going to be like, then I'm going to move on to the next thing. Like that's like you can create a clear definition for how to like qualify as success.
Okay.
Like
All right.
if you can't define the success, like then it's impossible to reach. Like this is one of the
Right.
problems with social media generally, is that like or even with like people who are like, oh, I want to make money at something. Well, there's never an amount that is like feels like the final amount.
Okay, yeah.
And so like you can define the Kickstarter really easily by saying, okay, well, the end goal for this is that I'm going to launch a Kickstarter, success or failure, whatever. But the success point of like whether or not you make money doesn't matter. The point is that you have like successfully launched a Kickstarter and made a real attempt at like succeeding on Kickstarter. And like if it blows up in your face, like fine, you'll have like the learning lessons.
Yep.
But like, you could say like you could say like, okay, Twitter's top priority, but you would have to define what it means to succeed on Twitter.
Okay.
So if that's gonna be your top thing, I say pick a number and then just be like, once I hit this number, then it's no longer the top priority, then it's the next thing on the list.
Yeah.
But I really like pushing people towards a Kickstarter early, in part because you can measure whether or not it's done. It's really hard to get away from like, because it's easy to always say you're not ready for it, but like you can really, you know whether or not you've launched a Kickstarter. There's no question about it.
Okay. All right. All right. 1,000 followers on Twitter. It is then. And I really need to like. I probably need to have some like daily progress goals for like the Kickstarter or whatever, even if it's just like an hour a day. Work on it.
That's fine.
Or you can just get into a controversy and then you get a boost like a 1,000 immediately.
Yeah.
Oh no, that's good advice for some people. That is not
such-
good advice for me. That will lead to me being depressed for like 6 months again.
But I like the idea of you like, if you're gonna work on the Kickstarter or whatever, I would set a deadline. Be like, you don't want to get into the Christmas season, so like, you say like by the end, it needs to be launched by the end of September.
Oh damn, it's August.
Yeah, like
Okay.
I don't want you to do a
Okay.
Kickstarter that's like a poker deck or something that can potentially be pushed off for 12 months. Like I want you
Okay.
to jump into something easy that's fast. So like if you're going to do some pins, if you're going to launch it in 30 days, you need to get those pin designs done in the next couple of weeks.
Okay. I have a quick question.
Sure.
About that. In that case, in my artwork, I tend to use a brush with a bit of opacity jitter on it, and I like zooming in really close and doing tons and tons of little details and hatching and things like that.
Yeah.
That is not a good choice for pins. Everybody making pins is making these like really graphic designy kind of like things with like big readable shapes or whatever.
It's good exercise.
And I could do that, and I have some skill in that regard. I actually get a lot of feedback on my like sketches and stuff that like even though they're very detailed, they do have like a good graphical read. So I can definitely do that. But at the same time, I am kind of trying to like go for a particular look lately that's like more detailed. Do you think it would be a better idea for me to just like, fuck it, like just like kickstart some prints or something instead?
I think one of the things you can do is you can make a pin that is like really graphic in its style and then make promotional art that is like really hyper detailed to sell the idea of it. Like that's a way that a lot of like old school games used to do it, is they would have like lo-fi graphics, but then they would have these super high fidelity box arts that would sell the concept of what the thing was.
That would look so good in a portfolio for like game art too, because in the kinds of games that have like the type of art that like I do, they always have like high res art of the characters or whatever, and then the sprites are like little chibis or whatever. That
Right. Yeah, like old Final
Yeah.
Fantasy games, they had the little character portraits on the menu screens that were the Yoshitaka Amano like artwork for the portraits, and then they would have like the little 8-bit or 16-bit sprite that would actually depict the character on the map. Like, you're like, oh, which one of these do I do? I'm like, yeah, both, obviously. Like,
Okay, all
it's
right.
totally doable to do both for a campaign.
Yeah, maybe if I like only do like 3 characters or something too, that would make it easy enough. I could maybe do like a poster of the 3 characters and then sell the pins. I don't know. Is that too ambitious? Is that good?
3
Although,
character
honestly, like-
with 3 pins and then 3 like little posters that go with it.
Yeah.
No, that's perfect.
Okay. All right.
But like, can you get that? Can you get that done and then also build your first Kickstarter campaign in the next 5 weeks?
It'll be hard, and it might not be the best art I've ever done, but yeah.
I think you can do it. I mean, you were doing character designs every day.
Yeah, but those aren't like the best art I've ever done.
Okay. I don't know who you're arguing with here.
No. It's just like, right, like honestly, like there's no project that's like too ambitious or whatever. If you just like lower your standards enough,
Yeah.
right? Like,
So,
you know,
Clay Chibi's asking, is Kickstarter a good source of income? And like,
Income.
I don't think that's the way that, I don't think that's the reason you're looking at it right now, right?
I mean, isn't it supposed to be like deriving enjoyment out of it?
I mean, the way I think about Kickstarter is it's like,
Right.
there's a few things that are good about it. Number one is that like people discover art on Kickstarter all the time. It's actually a good way to like get your name out there, is to like make a Kickstarter campaign so that people can see that you like, you're a person who makes stuff. But I also, the big thing about it is like, if you're thinking about being indie and making stuff for a living, instead of being like, someday I'm going to make an awesome art book, like you need to do smaller things and like get your feet wet as far as like, you know, doing sales and like going through the process of fulfilling orders and like making sure that people get what you promised them. Like that's all that requires like a certain amount of like just learning soft skills. And so going through a Kickstarter will like allow you to learn what it's like to be an indie artist in a really, really like controlled environment, especially if you don't promise too much. And then you also get paid to do it. And then you also have that stuff left over later when you like want to go and like, say you want to expand to conventions. It's like now you have inventory to bring to conventions because you ran a Kickstarter. So like you make a little bit of money, yes, but like you're also building all the blocks necessary to be able to do like the stuff that comes next.
Gotcha.
Which is why I like it, because it does basically everything in kind of this controlled way. Because if you end up like doing a really bad job with it, the worst case scenario is that the project doesn't get funded and everyone gets their money back.
yeah. And that happens.
It happens,
I still have
yeah.
like 6 pieces of art to put on my Twitter and DeviantArt and everything, right? Like, even that happening's not the end of the world. I still made progress towards like other stuff, and got some soft skills. And yeah, there's no reason not to do it except being a scared little bitch like I always am. So
I
I
wouldn't
gotta
put it that way, but
fight
yeah,
down
sure.
that impulse. Yeah, I know. I wouldn't put it that way either if I were like referring to another person. So I probably shouldn't refer to myself that way either.
I guess that's the
Everybody.
whole. Yeah, you don't have to beat yourself to it, man. Like, I guess at the whole point of just like set up like very close and achievable goals,
Yeah.
right? Like that you can like fulfill, and rather than like some long-term goal that's like arbitrarily that who knows that if it's ever completed or not. A very specific, close goal.
Yeah, because you could say like I should get good at art. That doesn't mean anything.
Yeah.
Like you could say I'm going to do 100 daily studies without taking a day off. You could say I'm going to create and launch a Kickstarter project, and I'm hoping to make $1,000 with it. You could say I'm going to try to build towards having 1,000 followers on Twitter. Like it can all if it's going to be a real goal, there needs to be some tangible way of measuring it.
Right. That's why you always see those YouTubers screaming like, "Can we hit like 10,000 subscribers like this month, something like that?" Like people end up like getting 10,000 subscribers at the end of the month, or more than that even. It's like they're setting up like a call to action, and then like people just follows.
But I mean,
it's like a close goal.
you have to set up a call to action for yourself as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
So this is the first time I've had a black and white reference that I've decided to do a color study of it. Honestly, I don't find it to be that challenging because it's like more or less I know what, like, once I've picked like where the cools and the warms are going to be in the structure of the lighting, like I don't,
Gotcha.
I just need to check against like the structure of the values, and I'm basically able to do it. And then it's leaving the door open for me to stylize it some, which I appreciate. Because like I was like, oh, the black and white figure on the solid red background just isn't feeling complete to me. But now I'm like getting to play a little bit with like cool highlights and warm shadows, which is a color scheme that I typically don't aim for. But I'm enjoying the heck out of. And the more of it that I kind of like push the study in that direction, that like more satisfied I am with the overall look of it.
Gotcha. Were you using like gradient map when you fill in the color?
I have a gradient map that kind of got the palette started.
Oh.
Like this here. I mean, you can see it retinted the red, but you can also see like the way that it gets flecks of blue in the cracks between the red and
I
the white
see.
background. And then you can see the way that it's creating these like halos of color around the transition points. That's really like where I get the most value out of it. And so once I start to use those colors, I can kind of, control them a little bit more and also layer some stuff on top of them. And I get like a lot more nuance out of it by, having that strong starting point. That's why I like the gradient map so much.
Yeah. One of the first things I've learned in digital art school, but hardly ever used it ever since.
Yeah, it's not
It
a
was
really
so-
standard tool. Like I wouldn't say that gradient maps are like an essential like art tool. I just really like them, and I've always had an easy time working with them.
I got to use that more often. Whenever I need to make like a quick mock-up, recolor of sort.
There's this.
It's sort of like for
anime-
me, it's figuring out what should I use for it. Oh, Jazz, what's up?
Oh, I finish your thought first. I was gonna.
No,
change it a
that's
little bit. Okay.
that's there. It is done.
Okay, all right. Yeah, I was just gonna say there's this anime artist called Lack, who is absurdly prolific. It is insane. That guy is basically doing like scenes that have like 17 characters in them in like a crowded city alleyway or whatever. Like,
Oh, I know what you're talking about.
and there's like market stalls and things, and it's all in color, and it's all really good. And he does it fast. He just like pumps out tons and tons of stuff, like new illustration with 17 characters in it every day,
Wow.
or whatever. And he uses gradient map. Like his way of like moving from like grayscale to color and stuff is like very similar to Pete.
Oh, that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is cool. His art's really cool. And I don't know. Maybe it's partly the gradient map mojo that you and he both share.
If you don't use a lot of local color, you can basically fully colorize an image using gradient maps. Like when I was working at CCP on the vampire game, like it was like all these night scenes, and what I was realizing that one of the key things about night scenes is that like you get very little color information because the part of your eye that senses color is like less sensitive to light than the part that senses value. So in night scenes, you end up with like much less perception of different local colors, and so you can basically get away with a black and white image that's been color graded.
Interesting.
Here, like if I take this, I just ended up with some gradient maps that I would just like basically go and take a black and white photo, and I would like gradient map it, and I'd be like, yeah, this is a night scene. It's like low light, and that's why it looks like that. And just like no differentiation between skin tone or whatever. And you just do context clues. You can already tell like what's lighter, what's darker, what's like skin tone. And like there might be a single colored light in the scene, but otherwise I would just like procedurally see. I would use this one a lot, or it'd just be like this a lot, where it would just be like cream colored highlights and like bluish midtones. And I would just say, if I could get the balance of values right, I could more or less throw a gradient map like this on there and just like call it done and be like, that's colored.
Oh man. I'm actually experimenting. I got it started and haven't got back to it in a while. But you were talking about like going from like grayscale to color, and I'm doing like an illustration for a client that's like still not done. Because I keep like not working on it. But yeah, it's like I haven't done very many illustrations, so I'm like not very comfortable coming up with like lighting and scenes and stuff. So I was just thinking about what you said, and I was like, what if I just worry about the values and like the light structure and that kind of thing first, and then worry about the color? So I'm just like trying to figure out everything in grayscale, and man, it does make things a lot easier when you're not thinking about like hues.
Yeah, the colors and such.
You can, if you can layer the color over the top of the grayscale, then you really only need to worry about them separately. That's the reason why people use this method.
It's a dark scene too, so like I wonder if I can get away with just like slapping a gradient map on it. Like I was trying to pet in some color before, and I was sort of realizing, wait a minute, everything is just kind of brown and orange. Like
yeah, you can start there, and then you can twist it a little bit. Like you can add a little bit of local color into it, and you can also add a little bit of colored lighting in. So like if you do, if you have like a light source, like a bright like rim light or something, you can color that. And on top of like an otherwise like just color graded scene, it will look like correct for a night scene.
Okay.
Interesting.
I'll have to get back to that at some point. For now, I have to get this traveler prompt done.
Have to.
No. It's think of how good I'll be at like designing characters, and like how much of a body of work I'll have if I'm just consistent about doing the design prompt every day. And then it'll all be in the sketchbook thread in chronological order, and people will be able to see it. Like, and I can use it for other stuff. I can just be like, okay, well, this traveler character is one of the characters in my Kickstarter, because that way I only have to design one character instead of two.
Maybe.
That's
maybe.
Mar.
Yeah. I don't know. I think it would be a good thing to like stick with. Imagine if like for a year, right? How many weeks are there in a year?
52.
Yeah, like imagine if I just have like 52 finished, like, fully rendered like character designs done.
Well, that's the thing. It's like if anybody were to do one finished character design per week, like that was how Angelarium got started. Is I had a 12-week class, and I decided to do a character design every week for 12 weeks. And I ended up with a project that I've spent the next 20 years working on.
Yeah.
But like, if I were to have just kept that up and designed like a new character every week, like, yeah, you end up with 50 portfolio pieces a year to like edit through.
Yeah. So I think it's worth a try, at least. Even if I only, like, I was doing that on DeviantArt for a while, and that's how I built what little portfolio I have for the most part. Like, just doing that for a few months, character design a week. And like not all of them are my best work, but some of them are my best work. Some of them were like, oh man, this one was kind of a win.
Of course. Yeah, I mean some of that's like the secret for when I would like work with someone in a mentorship, is I'd get them to make 5 to 7 pieces a week, and then when you take the best, and then we work together for like 3 months, so that's 12 weeks. And so if you have, just take the best piece from one, if you do 5 per week and you throw out 4 of them at the end of like a 3-month period, you have 12 really good pieces that are like the survivors of like the art deathmatch tournament that you're running inside your portfolio.
Yeah. Yeah.
All right. I need to call this finished at some point because I'm sort of pushing the peas around my plate here. And I'm not convinced it's making the whole thing better as a whole. I'm not convinced it's even working as a whole, but also it's a study.
I mean, it looks cool.
Oh, good.
Isn't that the goal in the end?
Yeah, I want it to look kind of cool. Part of the problem is the lighting on the face is super challenging, and we have this super low res source here, and so like I feel like I know where, like, if I were to keep poking around here, I think I could determine what color all the different areas needed to be. Like I was just bragging about how, oh yeah, I know where all these, what colors these are all supposed to be. Well, I mean, I have a pretty good idea, but some of them I think I'm actively screwing up, and I like that they're like really affecting the read on the face, which is like one of the most critical parts. And yeah, it's starting to add up as I like continue to try to be more specific about it, because I don't have a specific thing to build off of. I don't have like a good reference, because it's both low res and in black and white.
I see all the stuff you're saying. The thing I like about it, and like the reason I say it looks cool, is actually just kind of the vibe. Like I like what you've done with like the background and the colors and stuff, and how it's like a little bit unfinished because you only worked on it for like an hour. It just makes me
did work
think
on it
of,
for
like,
2
a
hours.
poster for like yeah, still
It's kind of Kill Bill-esque.
Yeah. It's giving me like martial arts movie like vibes. I mean, I guess it's because it's like a karate girl or whatever, but it's also the way you painted it. It's like giving me those vibes.
Now I'm gonna try to add a little like go for a little bit of a sports advertisement vibe here. A little energetic swoosh.
Is this stream sponsored?
Yeah, it's sponsored by people subbing to the stream.
Yes. So you should put like everyone's name in there. Mm-hmm.
It's sponsored by Jeffrey Kisses, everyone's favorite billionaire. I guess he doesn't own Amazon anymore, right?
I thought it's like Jeff Bezos.
Yeah, Bezos Kisses.
That's his full name. Okay. Wow.
Jeffrey Bezos Kisses.
Oh man. That's either the coolest name or like the least cool. I can't
Jeffrey
quite decide
Kisses?
one or the other. Yeah.
Jeffrey Kisses.
All right, I can try colorizing this by now, because it's I've got an alpha lock on it. I can.
Nice.
Man.
And then if I want to test it really quick with a bunch of different things, I can.
That's super cool.
Oh, I didn't get the masking entirely right. But masks are flexible, so who cares?
Anybody out there who's struggling with drawing, just draw in the occlusion shadows, and it'll instantly make your drawing look 10 times better.
Occlusion shadow, like just draw triangles, man.
Yeah.
Just like look at those, like where the lines are like converging on each other, right? If you see like 3 lines converging, just like mark one area that's like with like a sharp darker triangle.
Make little triangles. Like every time I'm like doing
So
a
if you look at TV Choice, like line arts, like you get the idea. Or Night Tang, like the guys at the they're like super good at drawings.
Pete, there's a question in chat about health insurance from Mundala.
Oh, health insurance. So a scary question I don't hear talked about often is how many artists don't seem to have health insurance. Can you comment on how people who weren't in the military or have spouses with insurance are getting health insured? I don't know. Like, I, for years, didn't have health insurance because even when I was making good money, the having health insurance that was covering my whole family, like for 4 people, was like, it was like so wildly expensive to get it on like the health insurance marketplace that I just didn't. Because it was just like, it was more than my mortgage every month to have even the most basic catastrophic insurance. So I just didn't do it. And then I think when we moved to Florida, the costs went down a little bit, and we decided to go and spring for it. And so I just try to make so much money I can afford it. But I think most people just either don't have it or get it through some other form of employment. Jangus Art is asking, or saying, I just got quoted $600 a month for just me. And yeah, it's like, yeah, I think it's like around $1,200 a month for me. And then when I was looking, even when I was looking at like getting a teaching job, I was looking at like teaching at Ringling, and they're like, oh yeah, we have a great health insurance plan. It's free if it's just for you, and if you have a family, it's $650 a month. And I was like, that's for when they're giving you the health insurance. It still costs $650 a month. And I'm like, okay, great. So like whatever their offer is, I just also have to delete 650 times 12 off of that in order to figure out what I'm actually getting paid. Which is, that sucks. It sucks to have to think that way. It like everything related to health insurance sucks. I think we all just kind of hate having to think about it. But like we don't really get that much of a choice, do we? Like some people have really specific health needs, and so they just don't have the luxury of ignoring it completely. I don't know. I'm like messing with like the background in a way I typically.
Right. You mentioned that you wanted to like teach at Ringling.
Yeah.
How comes have you ever been to Ringling and taught there?
The first time I went to Ringling, I got asked to speak there for the illustration. There's an illustration club, the Illust of the Ill, and like they flew me out to Sarasota to like go judge their yearly event and also do a presentation. And so that was the first time I went. I've got a friend who works there, and I got to like come and visit him too, and then I ended up coming out here, and I've been to Ringling as like part of like visited when they have like a portfolio show or whatever, and like been invited to like go and guest at like a couple of classes or things like that. And so I went to talk to him about doing something more like official full time.
I actually never heard of Ringling when I first made here in America until I got a university kind of letter of recommendation. I just pawned my letter. But like back then, like we're just like 2 years in America. We're not like fully citizenship yet. And like I have no idea how school even works. It's a strange world. Like when I start like living there. And then, like, after I learned about how big it was, like, wow, I don't want to, like, try it out there at some point. But, yeah, kind of blow my window away anyway.
It's a really cool place. Like, the kind of people that get attracted to Ringling are, like, people who really care about what they're making. It tends to be, like, people who are putting forth, like, a lot of effort. Like, so the students that get attracted to Ringling are, like, really hardworking, high-effort people, which is cool to be around. And then a lot of the staff are also like super accomplished artists. And so it's cool to like. I really wanted to be a part of that community because it's inspiring to be around people that are all like up to cool shit all the time.
Yeah.
But it would have required me to like put a whole bunch of my time into just focused on like teaching classes for them, and it would probably be a lot of first year classes, which I'm not particularly good at. And then I'll like it would be the pay would be low enough that it wouldn't cover like my mortgage and health insurance and my car payment and like my property insurance and all the fixed costs in my life. Like the base pay over there wouldn't cover any of that, and then it wouldn't even begin to like cover things like food or entertainment or like even some of the base necessities for my family. Because I think a lot of cases when people are working in a job like that, they either have like a spouse that has a second income, or they are like retired and they have like a lower cost of living. Like, so I think a lot of the teachers over there are in one of those two situations, and like it wasn't a good fit for me to like try to do that as somebody who's like a single supporting a family of four off a single income.
Gotcha.
All right, I'm gonna wrap this up. This is I'm poking away at this too much and not making enough progress. So I'm gonna call this bad girl here finished.
I think it's a good study exercise just to stretch
Yeah,
your hand a bit.
there's a certain amount of fiddling around I like to do at the end just to make sure I'm getting what I want out of it. Like in case that I'm like really near a cool idea, I want to note. And yeah, now I feel satisfied that like if there was something really cool there, I either pulled it off or I got close to it. Otherwise, like whatever. Like, it doesn't matter if I didn't get everything I wanted. It's a study.
She's
Failure is
bad
part of
enough
the
girl
point.
to rescue the president, Pete. I think you did a good job.
Thank you. So I'm going to post this up on my... I'm going to post it over on the dailies. I'm going to post it on my sketchbook.
Same.
Pete, I've also got someone for you to raid.
Yeah, I saw Miss Cookies. So I'm just going to get this stuff saved out and posted. I did a study over the weekend off stream. Oh, so this is number 50. So I was kind of thinking, oh, I'm going to have a milestone soon. I should like show like a before and after, but I don't think this is the one I would show as being like, check it out, I did number 50. We'll see. I mean, maybe it'll be number 100 will be really good, and I'll be like, okay, I did 100 studies, and this is how much better I got at studies. Let's see. Number 50, study number 50. And then on my sketchbook too. All right. So we're going to round out the stream today with rating Miss Cookies. So I'm going to pull... I keep fucking this up. I want to be able to see when I'm... I want to be able to see and hear the person I'm rating. And like when you rate, like it doesn't do that on my end, so I have to like pull their stream up separate. Or maybe I'm fucking it up. I don't know. Oh, Miss Cookie's working on a big ass canvas. That's cool. All right.
I think I'm actually gonna like sign off of Discord for a bit so I can like focus on posting on Twitter.
Yeah, man. It was good seeing you.
Yep.
All right, making progress. See ya.
Great talking to all you guys. You have a good day. Good
The
rest of
raid
the
has been
stream.
created.
You too.
Bye.
All right.
Raids.
I'll see you guys over on the other side.